Welcome to the Yellow Brick House Fundraising Summit. Today, I am sitting with Angelina from Macri Law Firm. Today, we're working together in helping the Yellow Brick House in raising money and supporting families and children that are suffering through domestic violence and that have turned to Yellow Brick House. Angelina has been doing family mediation and family collaborative law plus family litigation for over 26 years. It's an honor to have you with us here today.
The honor's mine. Thank you.
Miss Angelina comes with heart, empathy, a great mentor. I've gotten to know her very well. A lot of our discussions will be more on domestic violence. So can you just explain to us, what does abuse mean?
Most people will think of abuse and think of physical. Somebody who physically lays hands on you, punches you, slaps you, pushes you, uses something as a demonstration. Instead of hitting you, they hit the wall. They're being intimidating. The purpose is to make you feel intimidated, to make you feel shame, to control you ultimately. The Divorce Act was recently amended to include coercive control, which is more the psychological side of it. All physically abusive relationships have coercive control, but not all coercive control relationships have physical abuse. But it's still abusive. It's still about isolating you, intimidating, shaming. It's about controlling. And the Divorce Act recognizes different types of coercive control, one of which is financial. Even the person who doesn't put their hands on you, just because you've never been slapped, punched, shoved, doesn't mean that you're not in an abusive relationship. The indicator should be, do you feel that you are alone? Have you lost your circle of friends? Has it been a while since you've talked to your family? Are you isolated? And are you scared? If you are scared, you are probably in an abusive relationship. The question is, what kind of abuse?
How about we look into a little bit of a financial abuse together today? What is financial abuse?
Most people will be in a relationship and one partner is better at dealing with finances, so they take over the finances. That's not abuse. Where it becomes abusive is where one party controls the finances and the other person feels they don't have a right to even ask about what's going on. And it can start as something as simple as, you know what, you're no good at managing money. Every time you handle money, you screw it up. How about I do it? Give me your paycheck. Where's your paycheck? So you start belittling the other person. Why do you need to know where the bank is? I'll put it in the bank account. And it becomes harder and harder for the person who is the victim of it to have any say in what's going on financially. Their husband may own a business and will come home one day and say, here, sign this. Well, what are they for? Don't worry about it. Just sign the documents. There are levels of coercive. Here's a woman typically who's being asked to consent to her husband putting the family home in financial jeopardy. But he doesn't think that she should know what it is she's consenting to because he knows best. All the way to situations where he might be sabotaging her ability to work, making it so that she can't get ahead in her own career, so she is financially dependent on him. Or she's allowed to work, but her paycheck goes to him. The person is only happy when they are completely controlling the situation. They will do things like make the victim of this financial control have to justify any request for access to money. Assure them that they're not using it to have an affair or finance something that would be illicit or bad, giving it away. They have to justify their spending. Their spending can be controlled. Here's a joint credit card. I'm going to see what's on the credit card statement. I'm going to ask you questions about it. You have to satisfy me, the controlling person, about why you spent this money.
In different cultures, where the woman, when she works, her check cannot be hers. It goes to the man of the house. Is that something that you see a lot in your cases?
It's not normal, but it's not abnormal either. In a healthy relationship, Maybe the woman is giving the paycheck over to the man of the household who's putting it into a bank account, but she can ask him, how are we doing financially? And she might know where the bank is, what's in the bank account, and they'll talk about what the objective is. Are we saving for our daughter's wedding? Are we saving for that big trip to go see family? And she'll be participating in that. In an unhealthy relationship where it's abusive, she doesn't get to ask those questions. She doesn't have access to that information. Her job is just to hand over that paycheck. She is made to feel that she should be ashamed to even ask, to even question. Somehow she is doing something wrong by even having a question. If you are scared to ask a question because the person's going to get upset, they're going to get angry, that's your first indicator there is a problem. You should never be scared to have a conversation with your partner.
I guess, how would you say one is to leave a relationship that is financially abusive?
Once you've realized where you are is not where you want to be, you need to leave. Because it's been financial abuse, you have no information or very little information about what financial resources you have, what rights you have. So the first thing that you need to do is to get back some of that power. Depending on how invasive your partner is, safety first. You want to ensure that you have secure email. Your phone is just yours. Find where your personal documents are. If you can't take your passport out of the house without him knowing, take a picture of it. Your documents, your children's documents, any bank information, tax information around the house, take pictures of it. Upload it to a Gmail account that he doesn't know about. Put stuff someplace where he can't find it so that you have a starting point. Get a credit check done on yourself. The credit report will tell you things like how many credit cards you supposedly have. And you might be surprised to learn that you've got a car loan, you're on these other debts, because you've been signing for things and maybe you don't know that that's what you've signed for. So that gives you a little bit of more information. Just because something was true for your friend when they went through a divorce doesn't mean it's going to be true for you. If you don't want to see a lawyer, see a financial divorce specialist. They can give you basic information, what your rights are with respect to the family home, what it is that you're entitled to, what are your children entitled to, what you can expect in terms of the process, what is your spouse obligated to do. For instance, one of the first things that the court does when an action is started in family law is issue an order requiring full financial disclosure. So that's one of the benefits of the court system. You get a court that says to the other side, you have to make this disclosure. Get support from your friends, from your family, but get information from experts. And the more you start learning, the more powerful you start to feel. Because part of the fear of leaving a situation like that is the great unknown. And the things that we don't know in our heads can be so much scarier than the devils that we do know. You need that information. You need that power.
Can sexual marriage be a form of abuse?
Absolutely. Marriage is not a form of slavery. It is not a form of servitude. It shouldn't be assumed that because you're married, you have an obligation. You have no ownership of your spouse, and they have no ownership of you.
Situations like child bride can even happen in Canada, in where we are today.
Yes.
Where you are forced to get married at a young age. That's the culture.
Yeah. The fact that you are married does not give the other person rights over you, your person. Once you're married, you still have a right to say no. But quite frankly, you have a right to be asked. You have a right to say yes. It shouldn't be assumed that because you're married, you have an obligation.
So that being said, I like to talk about cultural abuse.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at statistics of divorce in different cultures, and you find that in certain cultures, the statistic numbers is lower in divorce compared to others. Not that the person doesn't want a divorce, it's the culture creates that atmosphere for that individual to stay.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And in those cases, there's a lot of domestic violence happening behind those closed doors. And those women are the ones that normally don't know where to go. And that's where Yellow Brick House comes in. And that's why it's important to support their fundraisings to help families in these domestic violence situations.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me a little bit about elder abuse?
Elder abuse is again about control. Typically, what you'll find is that there's financial abuse by the children of older parents, taking their pension checks, controlling their bank account, forcing them to transfer the house to them or to put them on title. They sell the house, and this person who's tried to do everything they can for their children is now left with no resources or living in a situation that they're not comfortable in.
How does your institution help with those situations?
Well, as a lawyer, I advise clients to really think hard before giving the house to the children, before making an advance of money to children, to make it clear that it's a one-time thing, to make it clear if it's a gift or if it's a repayment is expected. Try to explain to them how they're not doing their kids any favors by putting their child on title with them, because what they would have inherited free of capital gains may now not be a principal residence. So there will be a tax that they wouldn't have had otherwise. They have provided another asset for the child's creditors to be able to go after. And I assure them that estate taxes aren't that bad. It's 1.5%. You see on TV, sometimes people are like, oh, I've lost everything to the government. I should give it to my children before I die. The other problem is that if you have given everything to your children and you then need to go into care, your children may have invested that money. It may not be in liquid funds anymore. So now you're going to be a financial burden on your children as they've struggled to find the resources for you to get the medical assistance that you need. As a lawyer, I try to paint the picture for my clients, to let them see the possible consequences, and to understand that they're not doing their children favors by putting them on the matrimonial home or putting their name on the title, giving them constant financial assistance.
During domestic violence, there are other kind of abuses that are there. Can you give us examples of those?
So you could have psychological control. You may have heard the term gaslighting. Somebody who is trying to control what the reality is. They're like, no, that didn't happen. It was this way and that. No, you're crazy. To make you doubt yourself. So don't believe what your lying eyes are telling you. They all come down to the same thing, which is control.
What happens if you're in a situation and there is no funds, there's no support? What can we do? Do we stay?
No. I would want people to know that because you don't know where your assets are, because you don't have access to funds, isn't the reason to stay. Yellow Brick House is a place where you can go and they will connect you to various resources like legal aid. They will be able to connect you with some social services. They can help you find some housing temporarily to get to the next step. The answer, if you were in an abusive relationship, isn't to stay there. The answer is to find a way out. And the Yellow Brick House is one of the organizations that we have in our community that helps you find that way out.
We talked about financial abuse. We talked about gaslighting narcissists. We talked about sexual abuse. If there was something to leave us with today, what would that be?
It would be that abuse comes in many different guises. They boil down to trying to make you feel small, ashamed, and to control you. If you feel any of those things, you're not in a healthy relationship. If you are scared, you're not in a healthy relationship. If you can't have a conversation with your partner, you're not in a healthy relationship. And if you need to leave, there are resources like the Yellow Brick House.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.